Anna from NHCSR here. I'm going to start sticking these field reports into the Serious Grower feed during the growing season to give you some real-time reports from our extension specialists in New England, New York, and the mid-Atlantic states, sometimes our friends to the north in Canada, because one of the very, very, very best things about being in this field is how much my colleagues love to connect and share information. So find links to resources from extension educators in your region in the show notes and find photos on our Instagram at Serious Grower, and do pay close attention to where some of these reports are coming from because we're covering a wide region. And reach out if you need help connecting with any local extension specialist wherever you are. We will get you hooked up. Each of these field reports will start out with the most time-sensitive reports from what folks are seeing out on commercial vegetable farms, and then we'll do some more deep dives. I want to be very careful about when I'm talking about tunnel-grown crops, but otherwise assume I'm talking about open culture. Okay, top line reports for June 3rd, 2026. Cucumber beetle and Colorado potato beetle are on the move in cucurbit and solanaceous crops, respectively. And for areas affected by swede midge, that's northern New York, Vermont, and New Hampshire, monitoring programs are starting to detect adult swede midge in their traps. So it would be time to protect those brassicas if you are in a county where this invasive fly has been detected. Once eggs have been laid, larvae will hatch and burrow into growing points where they do damage on your crop plant. So once you see the damage, there's nothing you can do. So prevention is the only way to deal with this one. Other comments about brassica crops from around the region include diamondback moth and imported cabbage worm larvae, these caterpillars causing foliar injury on leaves. There was some discussion about downy mildew in cabbage. If you're seeing downy mildew on brassicas this time of year, it is most likely that infections came in on seeds or from the prop house rather than sources of inoculum out in the field. So that may be something to investigate. If you are seeing pale angular spots on the upper leaf surfaces that develop into fuzzy grayish white mold underneath leaf surfaces, especially if you're only seeing it on certain varieties and not on others. That will be seed-borne pathogen. Folks are also reporting on lots of bolting and buttoning in brassica crops following all these wild swings in temperature we've been seeing in the region. Bolting is premature flowering in crops that you don't want flowering. These wild swings in temperature may have tricked plants into thinking that a whole year has gone by and it's time to pack it in and reproduce before the winter comes. For broccoli and cauliflower, this stress can sometimes cause buttoning in flower heads. So instead of elongating to form a flower, plants form miniature, unmarketable heads of the vegetable, often like golf ball size, maybe even smaller than that. So they're forming prematurely or on stunted, undersized plants. So you can still eat these crowns. They might be a little bitter, but they're likely not marketable. And it sounds like swede midge damage might be confused for buttoning and vice versa. So make sure you have confirmed the presence of swede midge in your area, or see if you can find larvae in your plants before you panic if you think you're seeing swede midge in a place where you've never seen it before, because it might just be something physiological. Keep in mind. For onion crops, we are hearing reports of adults and nymphal onion thrips in low numbers on onion crops, so a good time to scout your onions for thrips to decide whether or not you need to do anything to prevent crop loss. You may also be seeing alternaria or purple blotch lesions this time of year as well. It's very common. We are hearing reports of heavy infestations of onion thrips on overwintered onions in high tunnels. So this is different from open culture. It sounds like most folks are getting by more or less unscathed in terms of crop yield on that overwintered crop, but there's no clear picture on whether or not there is a risk of that infestation causing more serious problems in the open culture crops nearby. And I would love to hear more from folks who are seeing this in real life to get a better understanding of the situation. For those areas that are affected by leek moth, that is northern regions of New York, Vermont, and New Hampshire, we are also hearing reports of larvae infesting garlic bulbs. So it's too late in the year to do anything about it, but worth thinking about what to do for newly planted crops in the future. From my understanding, researchers are just starting to understand this pest and its year-to-year severity Good news here is that detecting leek moth on your farm is probably not the death knell that some invasive species bring. However, even low levels of damage could mean new entry points for some of the bacterial pathogens responsible for soft rots. So if you are dealing with soft rots, this might make life more complicated for you. It's hard to say just yet, but we'd love to hear more from anybody who's dealing with that. We are continuing to hear reports of leaf miners laying eggs in spinach and beet crops throughout the region, so worth taking a look for those little white eggs on the undersides of leaves. As I mentioned, Colorado potato beetle adults are moving into potato, and temperatures are warm enough this week for Colorado potato beetle to be flying. At cooler temperatures, they have to walk, but this week they are probably flying. I'm also hearing lots of folks reporting seeing Colorado potato beetle on eggplant first, which is very interesting to me. So I'd like to hear more about that if you are seeing it. For small-scale growers who rely on physical removal for Colorado potato beetle, let me remind you that this beetle, no matter how diabolical, has an adorable behavioral trait where when it is scared, it will roll over on its back and play dead and throw up on itself. Experts call this defensive vomiting. Nonetheless, tapping plants will often have beetles easily releasing themselves to be maybe caught in a container of soapy water underneath, or land on the ground where they can be swept up or vacuumed with a shop vac or something you don't mind getting a bunch of dirt into. In a research setting, we will often strap a paint strainer bag on the business end of a gas-powered leaf blower that's turned around to suck instead of blow. Unfortunately, this is not an option for most electric-powered leaf blowers, and they often don't have quite the suction power you might need here. So as much as your neighbors are going to hate it, a gas-powered leaf blower, that may do the trick. For larger scale potato growers, please reach out to your local extension specialist if you need help with selecting crop protection materials. Keep in mind that most products work best on young larvae, particularly if you're using the softer chemistries or you're trying to mix things up as part of a resistance management program. Expect to see young larvae hatching out of eggs within a week or two after you start seeing those bright yellow eggs on the undersides of leaves. Now, we all had our hopes and dreams set for a commercial product containing Bacillus thuringiensis tenebrianus, or BTT. If you are familiar with dipel, it contains a different strain of BT that's effective on caterpillars. This is one that was effective on beetles, and it had very good efficacy on Colorado potato beetle. Unfortunately, it sounds like the makers of Trident, as well as Novador, have been really killing themselves to get a shelf-stable, OMRI-listed formulation to market, but neither could make it happen, and it sounds like they've both given up, which is a real bummer. For folks who are not organically certified, but looking for a very selective material for Colorado potato beetle that will have zero impact on non-target organisms, we have been hearing very promising results from efficacy trials with a product called Calantha. This uses RNAi interference to kill Colorado potato beetle, and it sounds like it works well, especially if it's timed for young larvae. The active ingredient is a genetically engineered double-stranded RNA. This is what makes it so selective and so non-disruptive in the ecosystem. But this is also what makes it absolutely verboten from organically certified operations. I'm including a Cornell Chronicle article in the show notes that was drawing from work in Brian Nault's lab investigating this in Geneva, New York. But a quote from that paper, once eaten by Colorado potato beetle adults and larvae, the double-stranded RNA enters into cells lining the gut of those larvae. The cell's machinery acts on the double-stranded RNA, following a pathway that ultimately silences a specific Colorado potato beetle gene called PSMB5, which plays a role in maintaining cellular health by removing defective proteins from cells. Without PSMB5, these defective proteins accumulate, cells die, and a few days later, so does the insect. Check it out if you want to learn more about it. In terms of price, unless you call a pesticide supplier, you're not going to be able to find the price listed publicly. And I think most people know what that means, that the price is very steep. Moreover, it sounds like it's currently only available in 1-gallon jugs. So unless you're growing more than, say, 10 acres of potatoes, this might not be for you, or not just yet. The per acre costs have been described as comparable to Entrust. And I know that even a quart-sized bottle of Entrust is not making economic sense to folks who only need to use it here and there or in small acreages. So keep that in mind. That's probably enough of a deep dive for today, but I also do want to shout out Dr. Rebecca Brown from the University of Rhode Island, because the weekly UMass Pest Alerts group had a terrific discussion with her about laser scarecrows for avoiding crop loss to birds. Laser scarecrows, which use moving beams of green light, turned out to be extremely effective for keeping most problematic bird species off of sweet corn. I will leave a link in the show notes about this work as well as their website. Dr. Brown did mention that pairing lasers with something else like bird guard distress call systems may be necessary in certain circumstances, especially if your local bird population has some more brave individuals, or you have weird shaped fields where the line of sight is disrupted for those laser beams. Dr. Brown and her team are hoping to continue their research by expanding into other crops like blueberry. That sounds pretty cool, but are also looking to license this technology to developers who can make their product more widely available. They have been able to offer their product at a very nice price point for farmers, but they are researchers, so this product is currently not available commercially. So you stay tuned for that. Other products on the market are very effective, and they can likely provide really good protection to very large areas, maybe an entire farm, a whole airport, a whole composting facility, but they are pricey, something in the range of $15,000 a unit. Depending on what your situation is, that might be worth it, but it sounds like the efficacy is worth considering. That's it for today. Let me know what else you'd like to hear more about, and thank you so much for listening.